Journal of Fred Abdeen. Day 188 in the Underworld. I had come a long way from the moment I first woke up in the sweltering heat of the Underworld. No longer the confused and frightened human I once was. I had fully embraced my new existence as a demon of the stone crushers, using my sharp mind and passion for geology to carve out a life in this strange, fiery realm. But as the months passed, I couldn't shake a nagging urge, an urge that brought me back to my days in the overworld, when I had once dreamed of writing a book about the marvels of the Earth's geological wonders. Now, the Underworld presented me with an even grander mystery. The rocks, minerals, and natural structures of this place were far beyond anything I had encountered on Earth. From the veins of molten obsidian that flowed like rivers beneath the surface to the towering spires of crystalline basalt that defied gravity, I found myself constantly amazed by the sheer variety and complexity of the Underworld's geology. I sat one evening in my workshop, a crude yet sturdy desk carved from lava stone in front of me. Glowing embers from the nearby lava river flickered against the cave walls, casting shadows that danced like spirits in the dark. My rough-clawed hands turned over a glowing shard of crystal, a sample I had collected during an expedition to a distant part of the Underworld. The crystal pulsed with an inner light, humming faintly with energy. "This place," I murmured to myself, "is more alive than the Earth ever was." The thought sparked an idea, one that had been germinating in my mind for some time. I would write a book, not just any book, but a comprehensive study of the Underworld's geology, a chronicle of the strange rocks, plants, and creatures that made this place so unique. My life's work would be documenting the nature of this ancient realm, preserving its knowledge not just for my fellow demons, but for the day when, if ever, someone from the overworld might find my writings. I gathered a series of crude writing instruments, quills fashioned from the claws of underworld creatures, and ink made from a mix of volcanic ash and crushed minerals. I began to jot down notes, my mind brimming with information I had gathered during my explorations. Chapter 1: The Living Stone. The first chapter of my book was dedicated to the one thing that had struck me immediately when I first arrived: the very ground beneath my feet. In the overworld, rocks were inert, unchanging over vast periods of time. But here, in the underworld, the rocks pulsed with a life of their own. They shifted and moved in ways that I still couldn't fully understand. Some stones, like the glow slate, emitted a faint, eerie light, feeding off the heat that radiated from the lava flows. Others, like the gravel flame, were prone to spontaneous combustion, igniting into brief but intense bursts of flame when disturbed. One of my most thrilling discoveries was the existence of abyssite, a dense, jet-black mineral that seemed to absorb not only heat, but light itself. When forged by the stone crushers, abyssite became nearly indestructible, making it the material of choice for crafting weapons and armor. However, its most peculiar property was its ability to eat sound. When I held a piece of abyssite, the world around me grew unnervingly silent. I scribbled furiously, describing how abyssite was found deep in the heart of volcanic tunnels, often guarded by ferocious creatures like the molten behemoths, massive, bull-like demons that roamed the darkest recesses of the underworld. These beasts seemed drawn to the mineral, their very bones reinforced by the strange stone. Chapter 2: Crystalline Wonders. My next chapter dove into the crystalline formations that dotted the underworld. The soul drake crystals, for instance, grew in chaotic clusters that spanned entire caverns. They weren't just beautiful, they had practical uses too. When harnessed correctly, Soul Drake crystals emitted powerful vibrations that could create fissures in the hardest rock, making mining easier. Yet they were unstable, and in the wrong hands, or claws, could shatter explosively, sending razor-sharp shards flying through the air. Another crystal, the Elder Spire, was known to grow exclusively near the lava sea, where heat was most intense. These massive crystalline pillars hummed with an ancient, almost sentient energy, which I suspected had something to do with the way they interacted with the underworld's shifting terrain. The tribes revered them as sacred relics, believing they held the knowledge of the first demons who had shaped the underworld. I, however, was more interested in their unique ability to conduct and store energy, a potential source of power that could revolutionize the way the tribes built and fortified their strongholds. Chapter 3: The Living Plants of the Underworld. To my astonishment, the underworld was not devoid of life. I devoted an entire chapter to the strange and often dangerous plant life that thrived in the fiery depths. I described the ash bloom, a hardy cactus-like plant that could survive the hottest lava flows. Its spiny exterior hid a fleshy interior rich with nutrients, a vital food source for the demon tribes. I had even developed a method of cultivating ash blooms in the stone crushers' gardens, helping my tribe secure a steady food supply. But not all plants were benign. The infernal vine, for instance, could entangle and consume any creature that wandered too close, digesting it with its acidic tendrils. I had witnessed a group of careless imps get snared by one, their screams cut short as the vine dragged them beneath the rocky soil. I made a mental note to caution future explorers about the dangers of this seemingly innocuous plant. Chapter 4: The Creatures Beneath. My explorations of the underworld wouldn't be complete without documenting the creatures that roamed its depths. From the fire-breathing rift stalkers, which could phase in and out of the shadows, to the gigantic lava whales that swam through the molten rivers. The fauna of the underworld was as varied and deadly as its landscape. One of the most fascinating creatures I encountered was the ember beetle. These small, crab-like insects could survive in the molten lava itself, scuttling along the fiery rivers without being burned. The stone crushers had learned to use them as scouts, sending them into dangerous areas to search for new mineral deposits. Chapter 5: Glowing Fungi. Sometimes on the banks of lava rivers, and as well inside small caves and ravines, I could find strange, luminescent fungi. As much as their counterparts on Earth, fungi in the underworld were a most intriguing form of life. Among them, I could also find what appeared to be small plants of a similar kind, mysteriously thriving without photosynthesis. Over time, my book grew into a comprehensive manual, one that captured the essence of the underworld. My fellow demons were perplexed by my obsession with writing, but they respected me for it. After all, knowledge in the underworld could mean the difference between life and death, and I was providing them with valuable insights into their home. I knew my book would never be read by anyone from the overworld. Still, it gave me a sense of purpose and connection to the scientist I once was. As I continued my research, I couldn't help but wonder, what if someday the borders between the overworld and the underworld were to blur? Would my work be discovered by future explorers, bridging the gap between two worlds? For now, though, I was content to be a chronicler of the unknown, writing the geological history of the underworld, one molten page at a time.